Hi, welcome to our study on the parables. Tony, thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about a parable in Matthew 25, and I thought we'd start off with a fun story. This last Friday, Chris Weeks, Dominic Tata, and Scott Stoner, a bunch of their friends, went down to a pretty big homeless camp on the corner of Independence Avenue and I-435, and they cleaned the place up like two trailer loads, filling up Chris's trailers with junk. Somebody asked on Facebook if they took any of the stuff that belonged to homeless people, and Scott Stoner, who has a great ministry to homeless folks, said absolutely not. Well, the pictures and the videos just thrilled me, and I was so thrilled about it. Chris, when he was inviting people to be a part, put up a slogan that we use a lot at Maywood Baptist. He said, "Don't talk about it, be about it." And the parable of the sheep and the goats in Matthew chapter 25 is a really good picture of don't talk about it, be about it. Tony's going to read us the first part of it, and I'm going to leave the second part off. We're going to talk about something else from Isaiah later on.
The parable of the sheep and goats in Matthew 25 is without a doubt a don't talk about it, be about it parable. The first part of the parable begins like this: When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. The righteous will answer, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer to them, Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of those who are a member of my family, you did it to me.
That's Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 40, and the rest of the parable continues throughout the chapter. When I saw the videos of what the guys had done on Independence Avenue, there might have been some ladies, I just didn't see any in the picture. I wrote on Facebook, "You guys made Jesus smile," and I believe they did. They did because they were showing the life that Jesus had put in them through their behavior. They're not alone. One of my friends ends all of his email messages with that last phrase that Tony just read. Truly, I tell you that as you did it to the least of these, my family members, you did it unto me. But he also doesn't just talk about it. In fact, he and his wife show through many practical ways of giving that they not don't just know it, but they do it, and that is so fantastic. Uh, Many people at Maywood Baptist know people who are in prison, and they don't just have little conversations with their buddies and say, "Well, I ought to write so and so who's in prison," but rather they write them. Some of them call them, some of them put money, financial aid for them. Again, they are showing Jesus's life in them through very practical actions, as is connected with this parable. For many, many years, Ray Martin and people like Ricky Shepard, Sherman Campy, Shane Campy, and many others have served food to people on Independence Avenue in a ministry that Ricky Beach has done for years and years. Rudy Ross, by the way, one of my good friends, owns Frick and Frack Restaurant, has for as many years as I can remember provided the food. And Rudy cooks the best chili of anybody that I know. And in the wintertime, the crowd on Independence Avenue gets to eat Rudy's chili. Summertime, they get to have hamburgers. Well, the theme, don't just talk about it, be about it, is a part of their lives. And I want to mention Dominic. Dominic Tata is now the pastor of Fairmount Christian Church. It's great to see churches cooperating and doing the kind of work that he and Chris and Scott did. So I'm thankful for that. Well, When God called his people, he didn't call them just to form a study group and to talk about God. And he didn't call them just to sit in an auditorium somewhere and hear a really good preacher talk about God. He called them to action. There's a passage in Isaiah that really speaks to this. So in Isaiah's day, it appears that God's people were just talking about him. They weren't living it out. And this is what the prophet wrote.
Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinances of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God.
The next phrase is that they wondered why God's blessing wasn't on them. God gave them an answer.
Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice?
And now the answer. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. And his answer was they were talking about it, but they weren't doing it. Why don't you read that?
Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bounds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourselves from your own kin?
Now you can find all of that in Isaiah chapter 58. It's a great passage. The point is, God has been on a rescue mission ever since Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden. What's beautiful in our world, and it's been this case for centuries, people who have been rescued by God become God's agents of rescue, like the people I've been talking about today. Praise God for that. Now, if you're concerned about what's going to happen to Western independence or America, if enough people will imitate the don't talk about it but be about it theme, we can hear this promise from God.
Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you, and the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, Here I am.
And that's again Isaiah chapter 58, and that's verses 8 and 9. Well, the best news for our country would be if a lot of us joined together and we didn't just talk about it, but we were about it. God bless you. Thanks for being a part of our parable today. If you have a prayer request, send me an email, bsprad49@gmail, or send me a private message on Facebook. Tony and I'll pray for you. We have a prayer team at the church who'll do the same. God bless you. Have a great day.